So for today, I wanted to talk about what is probably my favorite horror movie to emerge over the last couple of years, last 10 years, I guess, and that's Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. A great movie, excellent movie. I love this movie. So yeah, 10 years old almost. Still no sequel. Come on, guys. We know you can do it. We believe in you. So I definitely it has its following, has its fan base. Still word of mouth is spreading on this movie. People are still discovering, which is great. Becoming kind of a cult classic, but hopefully to become kind of a staple in modern horror, which I believe it is. And when I first saw this movie, I blind bought this DVD, and I didn't know anything about this. I try not to know about any kind of movie, before seeing it, because it's so easy to get spoiled in the modern internet age and stuff. I even try to, as much as possible, except if I'm like actually at the movies, to avoid even trailers because they just give away too much. So I knew absolutely nothing about this movie going into it. It was around this time, maybe 2008, 2009 or so, around October, where all the stores would have the horror movies up on display, up available to purchase, things like that. I got this at HMV, and I kind of looked at the cover. I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. What is this? The tagline definitely caught me. Freddy, Jason, Michael, we all need someone to look up to. So, okay, maybe it's one of those uh, copycat amalgam type of killer movies, which would be interesting, which we've seen before, but it turns out it wouldn't be the case. Though I mean, it certainly captures the spirit of those types of movies, which I like. So I mean, this movie it's just full of surprises and pleasant ones, I should say. Completely fell in love with this movie. I love this movie so much, and every time I watch it, there is something new to like about it. And really, for someone like me, who almost to a point of fault really likes to get into horror movies, analyze them, look for the meanings, this movie is just a dream to me. So I'm sure I probably give off that vibe maybe a little too much with some of the reviews you may have seen this month. But anyway, I do think it's a great film that's within the climate of modern horror. This month, with the reviews I've done, I've talked about some modern horror movies, about where they're kind of standing, how we have, say, the faux documentaries, where we have, say, the deconstruction of the horror movie as a genre within itself, where we have the throwbacks as a genre within itself. This movie is all of that in one, plus more. Plus, it does evolve into its own unique type of horror movie. It's its own straight lace type of horror movie. Um, and the way it's able to do that, and the way that it is able to deconstruct and to use that documentary style to make the movie unique in its own way is just brilliantly done. I think, and so really, kind of what it is, just to give you an idea of the movie. I'm going to try not to go into spoilers, but I probably will. So, I mean, I'll say spoiler warning, possibly. So, short review: see this movie if you haven't seen it. It's amazing. I love it. But yeah, so the climate of this movie. Here's kind of how it sets up the universe of this movie. Within this movie, it is set within the universe of horror movies themselves, where horror movies are real. It is in the same universe as, say, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. So that's kind of how it establishes the universe. It is about this a reporter doing a documentary with her small film crew, and she talks about the Camp Crystal Lake murder. She talks about Michael Myers' curse on Haddonfield and emerging there on at least four occasions. At least four occasions. And Elm Street, needless to say, they try to interview a resident of Elm Street who used to be possibly Freddy Krueger's neighbor. It's a little cameo by Kane Hodder, which is funny, I thought. So that's kind of what they establish. And what the goal of this documentary is to figure out, one, why this is happening, and why this has become such a prominent thing in this universe, and kind of how they go about it. So this newly emerging killer, who's ready to make his big debut, Leslie Vernon, volunteers to reveal the tricks of the trade. Kind of like, world's greatest magic tricks revealed kind of thing. So That's an interesting premise, I think. And so right from the bat, knowing that one, it isn't a movie about, say, horror fans. You know all the cliches of the horror movies that come into actual play when the movie plays out, like Scream, or like Cabin in the Woods, where it's they're playing out a horror movie in and of itself, but it's kind of representative of something else. This one, this is like I would peg this as for the true believers, for the actual within the movie itself type of genre, maybe even something sort of like Bride of Chucky, actually, when you think about it. But I think this is a better movie than Bride of Chucky, maybe even better than Scream. I don't know, but I really like it. So we meet this Leslie Vernon character who is shrouded a little bit in mystery within the first few minutes of the movie. You see like a silhouette in the window of the house where they agree to meet him, and you're wondering, okay, who is this guy? Then he finally pops up. Guess what? He's like the most chipper, pleasant person you're ever gonna meet. So already it kind of plays with your expectations of what we're going to be seeing in this movie, what the supposed new serial killer emerging is going to be like. So he's just like this nice kind of guy where he's excited about his job. He loves his job, and he wants to share that with this documentary crew, much to their increasing hesitance to come along with him in this dark world, sort of. But it's not a dark movie. It is kind of, he's a pleasant character, this Leslie Vernon. So he lets them know the tricks of the trade, and that's kind of what the whole movie is about. And in the way that they do it, it is a love letter to the horror movie itself, where they kind of explain why things the way they are. They take, say, the conventions, they take the cliches that you'll see in horror movies, and reveal a significant purpose behind them, which I think is pretty cool. So you'll see that he's like scoping out his victim. Like it's not an arbitrary thing. It's a carefully planned thing. So his victim, the survivor girl that he is seeking out, one, has to be a virgin. Two, has to have a very specific set of friends. So it wants a lively cast of characters. The jocks and maybe the stoners as well, just to pad out the numbers, as he puts it. Get a good count going, and they're the easy ones to get. Those kids, and he's even like looking over. He's like, the kid is like climbing up like a little step or whatever. He's like, look at him, and that's funny. So yeah, and the way just the actor Nathan Basil, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's just great. And this is, I think it was his first movie. I think the movie does say introducing this actor. So that in and of itself, because it's not like a known person, I think that makes it all the more intriguing. So he's really good in guiding us through this world. And just the way he plays it, just so kind of normal. It's just so, I love it. I really do. And so, they're exploring all the conventions of horror, and his plan. So that's his plan. He plans to plant little seeds of information about the legend of Leslie Vernon, how he supposedly killed as a kid, and how his mother was raped, and he's the bastard child. And, the good kind of backstory that you need to have, because that's essential for these types of movies. And planning basically everything leading up to the big night where he is going to go toe-to-toe with his final girl, and how he does love the final girl, how she is so incredibly important to him, and that's what I think is so endearing about this movie too, how they are made for each other, and how this killer does have such an appreciation for the final girl, and the strength that she finds within herself, and that he hopes she will be able to bring to the bouts at the end. So there's all that, and he talks about the symbolism of these types of movies, how the weapon that she would go for is phallic, so the Freudian symbolism behind that, finding her strength. She's empowering herself with cock, as he puts it. So it's a kind of a funny, stupid movie in that sense, and within the final chase, the labyrinth that they're to go through, yonic symbolism, girl parts, that's funny too, and just all the little details, like, okay, I gotta pick off this character first because this will set the line of this and this and this and that, and then they're gonna go here and this is gonna happen, and that's pretty cool, and little things like the lights always go out at the exact same time. Guess what? I have the main power grid hooked up to this. Can turn off the lights whenever I want. Oh, I already got the battery set up here in the flashlights, because they're going to go for the flashlights, obviously. So we're going to give them just a little bit of juice so they seem like they work. Oh, going to take out the spark plugs of the car. Don't want the car to start. So it is kind of brilliant in the way it plays with those conventions that we would see as cliches in horror movies. But what if this killer in this movie is planning all that, because it's part of this whole ritual, and kind of the heart behind this ritual is that he must instill fear, because if good has to fight evil in the grander scheme of things, if that's what this whole world is about, then there needs to be evil, and evil needs to be good at their job. And so he has kind of a mentor character too, who is also very pleasant, very nice, kind of from the older days. The old man, played by Scott Wilson, by the way, from what he would go on to, Herschel on The Walking Dead. So I mean, if you're a Walking Dead fan, which I know many people are, I would include myself in that. By the way, I'm a Walking Dead fan. It's worth seeing just for him alone, because he's really good in his role. It's a small role, but a good one. There are no small roles, only small actors, so he's really good. And of course, there has to be, if there is a mentor character, there is also, aside from the survivor girl, there has to be an antagonist kind of character, an Ahab, as they put it. And in that character is Robert Englund, who's very great playing his role. Kind of like, very much like a Dr. Loomis type of character. Dr. Halloran is his character's name. So he's very much like a Donald Pleasance kind of character. So it's interesting in that sense that he's made that progression, Robert Englund. And that'd probably be my main complaint about this movie. Not enough Robert Englund. We needed a little bit more of him. There's only really about 3 scenes with him, which is a little bit disappointing. I would have liked to see more. But whatever. Again, no small roles, only small actors, and every second Robert Englund is on screen, you're like, you see what he's going for, and you really like it. So that's really good. And so Leslie Vernon is with this documentary crew. Again, they're getting a little bit more and more uneasy with each passing night as the plan comes further and further into fruition. Where essentially they are becoming accessories to these murders, and that's worrying them. And how can they stand idly by why this happened? So that's interesting. And the main reporter, played by Angela Goethals, is her name. She's great in her role, and she has like the kind of Pamela Voorhees little sweater on the whole time. And by the way, if a little piece of trivia that I guess people like to bring up, yes, she is from Home Alone. So she's in Home Alone, one of Kevin's sisters. Kevin, you're what the French would call les incompetents. So she's that girl. She's really good. I thought she did a great job as essentially the lead character of the movie, aside from Leslie Vernon. So I mean, it all builds up to the big night, the big play out of this entire plan. And so I mean, at that point of the movie, you're kind of thinking, okay, so this has been set up for me, and we've seen flash forwards to what we expect to happen, but is that really just how it's going to play out? What's going to happen next? So I like how this movie, while it lays everything out in front of you, it still remains quite unpredictable, so you're not quite sure exactly what's going to happen. At least I didn't. I thought it was pretty unpredictable. And so then, at that point, there is a twist, which I think is really good. And it is, so, well, I don't want to... Well, basically, it's right in front of you the whole time, so I'll say that much. And then what happens is that the movie progresses and switches into the movie that it's meaning to be this whole time. So like for the first like 2/3 of the movie, or 3/4 of the movie, I'd even say, it is like this faux documentary where you see the camera guy moving around the camera, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Then it actually turns into the actual movie, and it fulfills its promises that it presented to us within the entire movie, but in a different way than we anticipated, which was really well done. So I mean, I'm just incredibly impressed with this movie. I think it is absolutely brilliant in the ways that one, it does play with conventions of horror, but it does it in a unique way where it doesn't simply point them out. It has an appreciation for them, but also, it has fun with it. It is a funny movie. It has funny lines. Again, the Nathan Basil character, great in his performance as playing the character. Quite kind of a nice, normal seeming guy until the mask is on, and then he's, the psycho killer. Qu'est-ce que c'est? And everything is out the door with that. So there's just that great scene where he is just so deeply excited to go into this plan, and it's a very moving scene with him and the Angela Gothel's character, where it's just this quiet scene where, and even like the subtleties of her performance, like watch that scene again if you've seen the movie, and it's like you see her seeing that he's crying, seeing that ultimately, yeah, this guy is absolutely human. He is not supernatural as much as he'd like to be, as much magic tricks as he'll do, all the studying of Houdini, all the studying of Grey's Anatomy, all the cardio that he does. He is ultimately human, and she sees that human vulnerability in him, and you can kind of see she's going for the shoulder, she's making a pat him on the shoulder, but no, that's not enough, and they're holding hands as he's weeping, and it's such a beautiful scene. That's the point in the movie where this movie is absolutely sincere. This is a movie done by people who absolutely love horror, who absolutely want to celebrate all the cliches, all the conventions within its own type of viewpoint. And it is written and directed by Scott Glassman, who I'm not too familiar with, but I hope, again, that he does a sequel. I would so much love to see a sequel to this movie. I think it's going to be called Before the Mask, so I think it might be like a prequel of sorts, so that might be interesting to see. But as is, I guess this movie, as it currently stands, it is a standalone film, which I think is fine, because there's nothing worse than really loving a movie and being disappointed by an inferior sequel. But I think Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, is a masterpiece of modern horror. Maybe not everyone would agree with that, but I think this is an absolutely brilliant film. I love it. I love the story. I love the writing. I love the little, pokes in the holes of the conventions of horror, and I love the affection that it has for horror. I love the cast. The cast is excellent, and I just think it's, an unpredictable and constantly surprising movie, and I'm always finding something new that I like about it with each viewing, which you can watch a horror movie over and over again and still enjoy it. I think, I can't tell you how many times I've watched, like, the Friday the 13th or Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So, those movies, in certain respects, I can find things that I like. But this one, there are, like, little, maybe gags that I don't quite see, or even, like, little subtleties to the performances that I might not catch. So, I'm just utterly impressed with this movie, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, if you have not seen this movie, hopefully I didn't spoil too much. Even if you, I feel like maybe I gave away a little too much, but whatever. I still recommend, highly, 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 highly recommend seeing it. So please do yourself a favor, check this movie out. You will not be disappointed. I can't recommend this highly enough. Just my favorite horror movie to come in the recent years. One of the absolute best in modern horror, in my opinion. I think this is very much representative of where modern horror stands and what it can achieve. So, you have movies that do the deconstruction kind of thing. You have the faux documentary, which is always really popular. You have the throwback, which is all very popular. But this has all of that, so it makes it even better. So, it takes so many ideas, fulfills them so greatly, so expertly, that I'm just in awe of how great this movie is. So that's my overflowingly positive review of Behind the Mask of Leslie Vernon. Behind the Mask of the Rise of Leslie Vernon. Please check it out. And that'll be my review for today. So I've rambled on long enough, but I just really love the movie, so hopefully I got that across. Thanks very much for watching. So we're probably nearing the end of 31 Days of Horror. There is still more to come, so keep tuned for that. And in the meantime, comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff, and thanks for watching.